Hey everybody, it's Meredith Miller with Inner Integration. So as promised, I've got some question and answers for you guys today. So the first one is someone's asking, actually several people asked, I think 5 people in the feed asked this. Do narcissists know who they are? Do psychopaths know who they are? Or are they totally oblivious to it? So I don't know if you guys have heard of H.G. Tudor. He describes himself as a narcissistic sociopath, and he puts out a blog which is incredible information. He also does some YouTube videos based on that blog, and he describes them on a scale. So he has the lesser narcissist, the mid-range narcissist, and then the elite or the high-range narcissist. And he says, the ones at the top, like him, he describes himself as the elite narcissist. They understand fully who they are. They're fully conscious of that. The ones at the bottom don't know. They're more having knee-jerk reactions to things. So they're not aware of themselves. They're less intelligent. He describes the ones at the top of the rung as more intelligent, fully aware of who they are and what they're doing. I don't know if you saw that interview I did with Dr. George Simon almost 2 years ago, and I asked him the same question. And he said they definitely know what they're doing. He said it's the conscious part of the brain that manipulates. And so what happens is maybe these people don't necessarily articulate who they are. They don't have the label, the name. Maybe they don't even call it abuse or manipulation, but they know full well that if they do A, then B happens. In other words, if they say this to you, if they do this to you, you're going to react in this way, and that's predictable for them. And, he describes it with this cat analogy. So if the cat sees, let's say, a giant pit bull, the cat is going to make itself really small. It's going to hide. It's going to pretend like it doesn't exist. If the cat sees a mouse, it's going to be, sorry, that was the opposite. If the cat sees the pit bull, it's going to be afraid because it's a giant predator, right? So it's going to make itself very big. It's going to make a lot of noise. It's going to arch its back and put itself in the most fierce position. But if it sees a mouse, then what happens is the cat goes really stealth, and it's sneaking around, and it's about to prey on the mouse as quiet as possible. And so he described that as the manipulator. If they see you, the mouse, they're going to pretend to be something they're not. They're going to sneak up on you, and they know full well what they're doing. So, do they know who they are? Yes. Can they always articulate that? No, they don't always know that. A lot of times clients will tell me that, their partner, their mother, their father, whoever the narcissist is, will call them the narcissist. That's very common. That's called projection. That's when they've actually heard the term. Maybe they went to therapy and got diagnosed, or maybe they just kept hearing it over and over again from an ex or someone. And so they actually know that terminology, but often they don't know the terminology, and they're always going to make you wrong, no matter what. Even if they know who they are, they're always going to turn that back around on you. So, I think people ask this question because it's kind of like they want to give the benefit of the doubt to this person. Oh, maybe they don't realize the damage they're doing. Maybe they don't realize how much they're hurting me. Maybe they don't realize they're manipulating and abusing me. No, they know damn well what they're doing. They do, even if they don't have the terminology. So it's not a pass. Okay, if that person seems to not know who they are, they seem to be unself-aware, it's not a pass for them to treat you that way. And I think that is the most important thing. Don't get hung up on that. Do they realize what they're doing or not? The point is they're doing it. And if you bring that up to their attention, they continue to treat you that way, they don't want to change. That's the most important thing to accept. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you're going to set yourself free. So another one, someone asked, is it mandatory for a covert narcissist to be physically or verbally aggressive? She said she never felt that she was in danger, but she felt like she was losing her mind. There was a lot of gaslighting. So yeah, that is a form of aggression. And that's actually what Dr. George Simon and I were talking about in that interview. And he wrote about in his book, In Sheep's Clothing, which I highly recommend you read, because it goes over all of these covert aggressive manipulation tactics. So there's overt aggression, which is the person that's out in your face and it's very visible aggression. And then there's covert aggression, which is very hidden. And that's the kind that the covert narcissist specializes in. That's doing things like blame shifting, gaslighting, rationalizations, minimization, all the tactics he names in that book. And what you'll find if you call them out, just like this person said, is they'll go through those tactics. This person, I think she said he would come up with excuses and things like that, and then he just disappeared. And that's typically what will happen with the covert types, is they will just disappear. Once they realize you figured them out, they're off. I think she said he wrote her some email and said like he was back with an ex. That's very typical of the covert type. They're not going to be out in your face like that, like the overt types. They're just going to hurt you in that sort of way. But it is aggression, and that's the thing. You need to recognize aggression for what it is, even when it comes in the covert form, even when it's just a lot more hidden than it would appear to be with, say, the overt type that was out in your face. And that's really important to recognize, because when you recognize you're losing your mind, that tells you how much aggression is going on very covertly that you've been going through over and over again. That kind of gaslighting will make you feel like you're losing your mind. And so it's really important to recognize that. It's not that the covert types are better, or any less damaging to you just because they're not out in your face. It's extremely damaging. I would even say that it's more damaging than the overt type because you don't see it. You see someone yelling at you and in your face, you're going to run away. You see a wolf, you're going to run away. But when the wolf looks like a sheep, you might go up and pet that, and that's going to be really dangerous for you because you don't realize what's hiding underneath that disguise. Someone else says, I'm totally over the narcissist. So why did they do... Oh, I'm totally over the narcissist, she said, but the things that he did still hurt to me, like the deceptions and the manipulations, because she felt humiliated and stupid. So here's the thing, honey, you're not over him. You're not. If you still feel hurt, you're not over him. And that's okay. It takes a long time. It takes a long time to heal from those kinds of deceptions and manipulations and everything that you went through. Being over him, sometimes we think, oh, we got out and we don't want to go back and we're fully no contact and that's it. So we're over them. But no contact is not getting over it. No contact is not healing. No contact is the boundary that you place to protect your peace, your health, your sanity, your well-being, so that you can heal yourself. And that healing process takes a long time. It can take a year, it can take 2 years, it can take longer than that to really process through all those heavy emotions, to really reframe all of that stuff. When you're talking about humiliation and feeling stupid, that to me sounds like the ego mind talking. The ego feels duped. The ego feels, why did I put up with this? Or how did I let him or her get away with this and stuff? And so what I find for those kinds of thought processes is to reframe that. Recognize you did figure it out. You figured it out. You got away. You won. So you got to give yourself that. In fact, I did a video maybe about 2 years ago on that, like setting your ego off the hook or setting yourself off the hook after narcissistic abuse, something like that, in which I talked about that. And so it's really important to reframe that stuff to yourself, because if you keep telling yourself that same story, that's what you're just going to keep reinforcing and reinforcing, and then you're going to keep attracting to yourself experiences in life in which you feel humiliated and stupid, even if it's just because there's this constant tape in the back of your mind telling you that, and it's not real. The thing is, you figured it out. It was very difficult to figure it out, but thankfully you did. So it's really important to reframe that kind of stuff. And then, if you're talking about the heavy emotions afterwards, that's the stuff that you have to process slowly. It comes up slowly. You're going to wake up and you're going to feel a certain way. You're going to go through the day and you're going to feel a certain way. Emotions are just going to come up. Things might trigger it. It might come out of nowhere. You might be having flashbacks. And you have to sit with that stuff. You have to really feel it, because if you stuff it down, if you push it away, it's just going to keep rearing its ugly head. It's not going to get better. You can't go into denial to heal that stuff. We have to allow ourselves to feel it. And I think one thing that's really helpful is to feel it in your body, because that's what makes it real. Emotions are so intangible sometimes. But if you let yourself feel it in the body, like, where does this emotion feel in my body? Like, where does this humiliation feel in my body? Maybe it's the lower back. Maybe it's your gut. Notice where that's at. And then bring your awareness to that part of your body and ask it what it wants to share with you, what it wants you to learn, what it wants to tell you. So that's how I recommend working through that process. If you want more information on the recovery process, in fact, several of the people had mentioned in the feed about recovery info. Check out my new book, The Journey. a roadmap for self-healing after narcissistic abuse, it walks you through that. It walks you through all 3 stages of healing and all of these nuances that take place in each of these stages, and then the 12 phases that take place within those 3 stages. So I think it'll be really helpful for you. I give you a lot of tips and ideas, and people are finding it to be really helpful. So someone else asked, what questions do you ask yourself when you're moving forward in a new relationship after a narcissist? So now you're hoping to find a relationship with a healthy, normal person. What kinds of questions would you ask yourself? So I would start with, why do you want a relationship? Like, what's your motivation? What is that coming from? Is it coming from a place of loneliness? That's dangerous. Stop yourself right there. Because if you're going to enter that relationship coming from a place of loneliness, you're probably going to attract another type just like that. They're going to prey upon that. They're going to appear to be your rescuer, your savior, everything you've ever wanted, your soulmate. And that person's going to abuse you. And then you're going to have a really hard time leaving because you're going to be like, well, but if I'm alone, it's going to be really painful. Maybe it's better just to stay in this abusive relationship. So I don't recommend dating when you're feeling lonely. That's really, really dangerous. Dana from the Thrive After Abuse group, she said in a video a while ago, just like, you don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry. You don't date when you're lonely. It's really dangerous. And you got to ask yourself too, like, are you really ready? Are you really ready for a new relationship? Or do you still notice that you have needy tendencies, insecure tendencies, based on the abuse that has taken place, based on the gaslighting and the things that you're used to seeing? Are you expecting that new person is going to lie to you, going to cheat on you, going to distort your version of reality? Are you expecting that? Or are you able to walk into that with a clean slate, with an innocent until proven guilty mindset, where you allow yourself to truly see that person for who they are, versus superimposing upon them all of these things from the past? You got to unpack that baggage first, because if you walk into that next relationship with that baggage, say you do find a healthy person, it's not a narcissist or psychopath, you walk into that relationship, that's unfair to that person for you to put that baggage on them. That's not going to be a healthy relationship. It's not going to work out. You might meet a wonderful person and it doesn't work out because you still came with all your baggage. So those are good questions to ask. And then the bottom line is self-trust. Like, are you at the point where you trust yourself? Because that is your number one barometer. If you start dating this person, you got to be able to trust yourself to recognize the signs and not. Like, if your body is starting to pick something up, are you going to trust that? Your stomach drops, you get anxiety. That video I did a few weeks ago on all those symptoms that your body could be telling you this is a toxic person, a toxic situation. Are you able to notice that stuff, and are you able to validate that and trust it? Or are you just going to stuff it down and pretend like that's not happening? And then on the contrary, when there are no signs, you fully recognize when your body is telling you those signs, and then you don't feel those signs with this person, so everything's okay. Can you trust that too? Or are you going to freak out because you're still bringing the past with you? So that's really the bottom line is, where is your self-trust at? And that's where you got to get honest with yourself. Really do that inner inventory and check in. Like, how much do I really trust myself right now? If your self-trust is not restored, at least mostly restored, I don't recommend dating because you're not ready. You still need to work on you. You can go to networking events, for example. Maybe your city has organized networking events where a bunch of professionals just go and you just talk and meet people and exchange business cards. That is a great way to test your self-trust, because you have this opportunity just to go around the room and talk to people. And as you're talking to people, how do you feel? What do you notice in your body? What are you noticing that's coming up for you? What kind of vibes are you getting? What is the person's body language telling you? That's a great way to practice that kind of stuff before that sort of romantic, idea and all of that comes up. So those are the tips I would recommend, if you're considering getting into another relationship. Those are the questions I would ask yourself. Somebody else asked, how can you be gray rock and no contact without feeling like a doormat all the time? So I'm not really sure where this person was coming from in terms of feeling like a doormat, because if you are no contact, and if you're doing gray rock, you should feel empowered. You shouldn't feel like a doormat. So maybe there's a leak in the boundaries. Maybe you still need to practice the gray rock. Maybe you're still internalizing it. So if you're fully no contact, you're not going to feel disempowered. You're not going to feel like this person is treating you like a doormat because you have no contact with this person. You don't know anything about this person. You're not stalking them online or doing drive-bys or any of the ways that you're trying to convince yourself that you're no contact, but you're actually not no contact. If you're doing that stuff, of course you're going to feel like a doormat because you're still living in it. You're still putting yourself in that. That video I put out about 1.5 years ago was something like all the ways that you could be fooling yourself into thinking you're no contact, but you're really not. Watch that video. In terms of the gray rock communication, this takes practice at first. So at the very beginning, you're learning how to be boring, unopinionated, uninteresting so that this person doesn't latch on to you. They're looking for some kind of juicy supply. They're looking for some kind of juicy emotional thing. They want to get you really upset or they want to get you really happy because that's the way they're going to start to drive your emotions again. And they're going to move them up, they're going to move them down, they're going to do whatever they want with your emotions. But if you don't give them any of that, they talk to you. If you have to have contact with this person, you're a co-parent, or you're still working in the environment, you haven't found a new job yet, or some reason why you still have to be in contact with this person, you got to practice this over and over again. Over and over again. Every time you show up, no emotion, not sharing anything personal, not giving them anything about your life. Whatever is going on with you emotionally, you cannot show that to them. And if you do, then you're giving them that power. So you really got to own that for yourself. And you're not going to feel like a doormat if you do that because it's very disarming. Like they can't get anything. They can't get anything from you like that if you give them that gray rock response. So I would, if you're still feeling like a doormat, I would look at the ways in which maybe you're not actually fully no contact, maybe you're fooling yourself, or the ways that you need to step up the gray rock. Like maybe you're still letting too much emotion out and you need to neutralize that so you don't give them any supply. And if you haven't seen that video, responding versus reacting, I recommend checking that out because it teaches you how to do that. I mean, I didn't call it gray rock, but that is what that is. When you learn how to respond to them without reacting emotionally, you're essentially using the gray rock technique. Someone else said they want to know recovery information, which I mentioned. Check out my book, The Journey, for that. And she's talked about boundaries. And she said, this covert narcissist, they broke up, but unfortunately, they still share some social situations. I think it was a dance group or something. And she said that the other people there were encouraging her to be polite, to talk to him in public. She said, people think I'm immature for not being friendly. How do I handle that? So first of all, you got to stop caring what other people think. They're not the authority over your life. You are the authority over your life. So this is a hard practice if you spent your whole life being a people pleaser, which means you care a lot about what other people think. That's a recipe for unhappiness and inauthenticity, essentially, because then you're going to make yourself out to be what everybody else wants you to be. You got to be you. You have to be that authority in your life. So, first of all, reframe that. You got to stop caring what other people are telling you. It's none of their business. I would just start ignoring that, whatever they're telling you. Maybe you need to reevaluate, do these people really belong in your life? If they're just acquaintances and you can do well kind of moving around and not really connecting with them, that's one thing. If they're your friends and they're close and they're in your inner circle and they're feeding you these sorts of ideas, that's dangerous to your sanity. Maybe you need to reevaluate why these people in your life, why they're a priority, why you're making them a priority in your life. And, the other thing too is, so when you run into these people after you've broken up, it's really important that you just act like they don't exist, because that's the worst thing that you can do to them, essentially. Like, they want something emotional from you. They want you to be upset at them. They want to see that you're jealous because they've got someone new on their arm, or you're sad that they left or that you had to leave them, or you're happy to see them. Like, don't give them any emotion whatsoever. Just go about your business. And If that gets really hard, then like I said, maybe you need to reevaluate if you really want to be in that group of people, if you really want to be in that community. Usually the best thing to do is to cut loose. Like if these people don't see who he is, which is very typical, or she in other cases, right? But in this case, it's a he. That's very typical in the cases of the covert types. People just don't see who they are. They're so hidden, and it's not their fault. Remember, you didn't see it at a certain point too, right? So have some compassion for that, but also recognize what's not healthy for you. And it's not healthy to be around people who are minimizing your feelings, your perceptions of reality, and telling you that you got to be doing something else. They just don't get it. And sometimes it's just easier not to hang out with people like that when they don't get it. So someone else asked, when you're finally free of the narcissist, how do you love yourself? She said she spent a lifetime pleasing everyone else. So how do you put yourself first without feeling guilty or like you're hurting someone? Well, that self-love comes through the self-care process, because as you take care of yourself, as you honor yourself, you make yourself a priority, you're showing yourself through your actions that you love yourself. It's not about standing in front of the mirror and telling yourself that you love yourself. That's not going to make a real big difference. You got to do it through action, because that sends a powerful message to your subconscious that you care about yourself. And I did a whole course on this. It's called the Self-Care Mastery Course. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out. It's on my website. It's on the front page. It's also on the Courses and Coaching tab up top. And it teaches you this whole process. And I specifically talk directly to the people who have been people pleasers all their life. What some people might call codependency is essentially people pleasing. And people pleasing is just really self-abandonment. That's what that is. Because when you're taking care of everybody else over yourself, you're abandoning yourself. So it's through this process of self-care. And in that course, what I do is I walk you through the 5 domains of self-care as I see it. I give you wonderful tips on that. You get 8 bonuses with it. You get a lot of powerful information. People have found it really pivotal in their recovery process. If you're just starting out, it might not be for you. It's what I would call my advanced course. You might want to start with the Sana course. Definitely get the free course that I give you when you opt in with your name and email. When you go to my website, you get a free course. It's a 3-part video course, and it's the foundational basic course of starting from the ground up, the self-healing process. But if you've been working on this for a while and you're really not ready to get to the next level of self-love and self-care, I recommend checking out that course. And finally, someone asked, how do you heal the health issues from narcissistic abuse in childhood and adult relationships? She said she's manifesting a lot of physical symptoms instead of feeling the emotions. So that's very common. When we don't want to feel the emotions, we stuff it down, then the body has to manifest it as some sort of illness, accident, disease, pain, tension, something to get our attention. That's essentially the subconscious trying to get your attention. And so we need to reintegrate that. We need to reintegrate the body, mind, spirit in that way, so we can really allow the messages to come up. We can allow ourselves to feel those emotions. We don't have to keep manifesting them in a physical way. One of the bonuses that comes with that self-care mastery course is called Psychosomatic Awareness and Integration. It's also sold separately as like a little mini guided visualization. It's only $5, and essentially what it does is it guides you through this process, and you can do the same meditation over and over again for different emotions, different issues in your body, or just to go deeper and deeper into the layers of one issue. I really recommend that practice, and then you don't have to always listen to it. You can listen to it and then learn how to do it for yourself, and then you can just do it on your own, even when you're at the grocery store or some other place where something suddenly comes up. You got like a pain in your side or whatever, and it'll teach you how to deal with that, how to go into that deeper, how to find the emotion, how to allow it to send you that message. You can receive it and you can move past it. So I'm going to wrap this video up right now. I'm sending you all a big hug.